I did see that the 49ers have a pretty good chance of making the playoffs, 81.8% chance of making the playoffs. They got the 15th most difficult schedule. They play the Rams twice, who've been to the playoffs last year. Other playoff teams, Kansas City, Dallas, Green Bay, Buffalo, Miami, Detroit. So they do play some good teams. Now, as far as who's got a realistic shot of winning the Super Bowl, I saw this stat this week. Tell me what you think of this. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions were either like plus 1,200 or shorter odds to win it all in the preseason. So this year, that would be Kansas City, the Niners, the Lions, and the Ravens. They're all 12-1 or shorter odds to win the Super Bowl, with Buffalo, Houston, Philly, and Cincy just on the outside of that. So, Chase, I'm going Niners-Texans as my Super Bowl pick this year. What do you think? I mean, have you made a Super Bowl pick yet? And when you see that stat, 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions were plus 1,200 or shorter odds, and this year that's Chiefs, Niners, Lions, Ravens. Are you pick as your Super Bowl winner one of those four?
It's pretty funny that you say that, because I was in Las Vegas last weekend and we're wagering on the opening weekend of college football. We're laying down some future bets, and we got a booth and a section at the largest sports book in the world, and we're hanging out after watching a couple of college games, and my buddy to my left was like, all right, it's time for our annual Super Bowl picks. He put it down in a notepad, and then he set reminders for when the messages will go out after the Super Bowl. My Super Bowl matchup was actually the same as yours, the Houston Texans and the San Francisco 49ers. So I don't mean to be corny, but great minds think alike. I do think that Houston's really special. They've fully taken advantage of building up that team with C.J. Stroud being on his rookie contract. I love what DeMeco Ryans did last year. He flipped the culture in year one. They're really sound and deep with a lot of talent and depth on both sides of the football. And then for San Francisco, it's just about getting the job done at this point. 4 NFC titles and 2 Super Bowl appearances over the last 5 years. And this year, this team, I think, is deeper than in years past. They still have premium players on both sides of the football. They're one of the best coached teams in the NFL. And if they can stay healthy, I think that they can make it back to the Super Bowl 59, February in New Orleans. What I think could hold them back is the injury concerns, which have already been a little bit of an issue to start training camp, the preseason, and the regular season. It's interesting because Kyle Shanahan was hired in 2017, and up until last year, they were top 10 in injury rate every single year. Last year, they were the 4th healthiest team in the NFL, and we saw what they were able to do. 12-5, number 1 seed in the NFC, making it to the Super Bowl with a couple of epic wins against the Packers and the Lions. And then the other thing that worries me is offensive line play. But if the Niners are able to play sound football and play up to their capabilities, I think that they could represent the NFC once again.
You mentioned health. And, before we get into the title of the stream, which is, can the Niners stop Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense? There were some players who were limited at practice yesterday, one of them being CMC. And they list his injury as a calf/Achilles injury. This was a calf injury originally. Now that's being listed as a calf/Achilles. It's all roughly the same area, but you kind of wonder. What do you think? I would love to see the Niners take, like last year, it was like they acted like Christian McCaffrey was the only back they had.
Yeah.
Like, and like if he wanted to carry, everybody else be damned. And if he wanted to be in the game, everybody else's wishes be damned. It was like they totally kowtowed to him. It was like they allowed him to just make this run at the MVP, which was great, and we all loved it. But then they got to the Super Bowl, and I don't know if he was 100%. They have another back who's big, strong, healthy, and ready. And why, if CMC's got any lingering calf pain, any lingering Achilles pain, you just threw a bunch of cash his way. Why wouldn't you play JP Mason for the first month if you really have any concerns? I would love to see them be hyper conservative here and go with Mason over CMC against the Jets on Monday night if there's any concern. How do you view it?
Completely agree with you. I think any time that you hear calf strain leading to Achilles, you have to take extra precaution. And there are a lot of factors that go into this decision and this approach for San Francisco. As part of this, too, the NFL this year is forcing teams to be much more specific with putting players on the injury report. I think that's betting implications. I think it's fantasy implications. But this year, the NFL is a lot more stringent as far as what teams are listing players as far as their injuries go. So we know that an Achilles injury can go wrong at any point if you're not safe, if you're not cautious about it. And you make a terrific point that I talked about yesterday on the 49ers report by Chat Sports. The Niners signed him to a contract extension through 2027. And they upped his average annual value. They gave him guaranteed money. He reset the running back market once again in a monster way where he's making $19 million per year. And you want to make sure that a running back who's 28 years old, who after he was an All-Pro with Carolina, had back-to-back injury-plagued seasons, whose usage rate, to use a basketball term, has been through the roof the last year and a half since the trade, is going to be able to be fresh, stay healthy, and be an impactful player for your football team, because this is a Niners organization right now that's dealing with some cap problems. And if you're paying a running back all that money and you have cap issues and he can't contribute, it's a huge issue. It really prohibits you from building out the rest of your team with this Brock Purdy contract looming. And I'm with you on Jordan Mason. I think that he's one of the most underrated, under-talked about players across the NFL who people don't know about, who I think if he were to go to another team, he'd be highly productive. What we've seen from him his first 2 years and then in the preseason, he's physical, he's fast, he's a one-cut runner, he's decisive. He is picking up 5 yards per pop. And even with bad offensive line play, he's still going to be able to find a way to carry the pile. So even if McCaffrey is healthy, I'd still like to see San Francisco involve him more, because I love the thunder and lightning combination that the Niners have in that backfield, especially with some of the offensive line issues that they have. And when you talk about this New York Jets team, they're awesome up front. They have two fantastic linebackers as well in CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams. This is a player who will run through a brick wall and keep moving in Jordan Mason. So I get concerned anytime I hear the word Achilles. Christian McCaffrey led the NFL in touches last year, won NFL Offensive Player of the Year. He's accomplished everything that he's needed to accomplish. Offensive Player of the Year, top 5 in MVP voting, more than 2,000 all-purpose yards. This year is about winning the Super Bowl. And you need Christian McCaffrey on this team to win a Super Bowl, both on the field and financially. So I'm being extra precautious about this, but I know that Ian Rappaport said this morning he's going to have a good chance to play on Monday.
He is going to go on Monday. And good. I mean, I'm glad he's going to go, because that means he's healthy,
right,
most likely. But all I'm saying is, man, this is the guy you got to have in the winner's circle. And if you can do whatever you can to limit his carries and limit his touches, you've already paid him the money. Yep. It's like, at this point, it's just about effectiveness. Okay, we titled the stream, "Can the Niners stop Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense?" Let's talk a little bit about Rodgers. Rodgers played one game last year. It was week 1. He played 4 plays. Leonard Floyd sacked him. He ruptured his Achilles tendon. By the way, Leonard Floyd got death threats, and he's going to be fired up on Monday night.
Good interview on your channel.
To go after. I mean, Leonard, I said, man, he tried to downplay it. But then when I kind of pushed him on it, he was like, yeah, I'm bringing it, man. I'm bringing it Monday night. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he does Monday night. But I guess the question is, what is Aaron Rodgers even going to look like? How mobile is he going to be? He didn't play a single snap in the preseason. He looked good in camp, according to the people who were at Jets camp. But what do you think of the matchup of the Niner defense against Aaron Rodgers? And I guess the question is, are the Niners getting Rodgers at the wrong time or the right time? Because some people think it's the wrong time because, man, he's going to be tired and beat up by December and he might be out for the year at that point. Or, other people say, well, no, it's the right time. He hasn't played in a long time. He's rusty, didn't play in the preseason. What do you think?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. I think that there are question marks and relative unknowns on both sidelines here. And I know that it was only the preseason, but your son, Kevin, who is becoming a great source for Niners news on X, put out some fascinating data going into the preseason finale against the Raiders about how San Francisco's defense all across the board against the run, against the pass, tackling, efficiency wise, was one of the worst defenses all across the NFL in the preseason. And again, it's the preseason, right? You can't make too much of it, but now you're going into week one and you have a new defensive coordinator for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, who's never called plays as a defensive coordinator before. The only coordinator experience that he has was as a special teams coordinator under Urban Meyer with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I know that Nick Sorensen was a grinder in the NFL for a long time, a linebacker and a guy who played special teams, and he came up under Pete Carroll. He was with the Seahawks during those Legion of Boom days. But now you have a first-year DC who's inexperienced, who's never called plays before, going up against Aaron Rodgers. So that's the relative unknown on the Niners side. And are they going to make changes to their defensive scheme? There's been some hints that they can make some alterations and some adjustments. I still think that they're going to go heavy wide nine, and you still have a great linebacking core, and this secondary is really deep. The players are there. But is the play calling there? And is the situational awareness there, especially on some of the money downs and critical situations where an inexperienced defensive coordinator could struggle? Third downs in the red zone, on fourth down. And I know that the Ravens last night debuted a defensive coordinator, Zach Orr, who's in his early 30s, and he was awesome. But it seems as though whichever defensive coordinator the Ravens have under John Harbaugh, they're always well-equipped and ready to go. And Kyle Shanahan's done a good job of identifying coordinators. I give him credit for that. So that's the Niners side. On the Jets side, Aaron Rodgers, as you mentioned, popped his Achilles a couple of plays into last year. This is a team that still won 7 games with a really, really elite defense. Those games were ugly. Those games were close, but the offensive system was a joke. Zach Wilson was absolutely horrible. And for Aaron Rodgers, what is he going to look like coming off that torn Achilles at now entering his age 41 season? Now, he did win NFL MVP in 2020 and in 2021. In 2020, 48 touchdowns, 5 picks. Niners beat them in the divisional round. And then the following year, 37 touchdowns and 4 picks. He's always been a quarterback who's thrown very few interceptions. But then his final year in Green Bay, 8-9 season, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks. And it's just a huge question mark how he's going to look, how he's going to move coming off that torn Achilles. But I do think because he's never really been a mobile quarterback, he still has the quarterback smarts. He still has a great arm. He's still going to be able to be smart and savvy because he's always had that to his game, and he can make any throw on the football field. And the Jets do have some really good weapons. Garrett Wilson's an awesome wide receiver. Breece Hall is one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. I think this year he could pop off for 1,500 yards, and they really did emphasize building up that offensive line, which has been so bad in recent years. They brought in Morgan Moses at one offensive tackle spot, Tyron Smith at the other offensive tackle spot. So I'm fascinated to see how an inexperienced defensive coordinator goes up against one of the all-time greats at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the running back Breece Hall is he's a good sized back, and you look at him and you think, well, you know what, he's going to be one speed, and then you realize he's actually faster. And I just think that going back to Iowa State, if you look at his film, guys took bad angles, took bad angles on him a lot. The other thing that I think people should not forget, or the Niners, I'm sure, are taking note of, Breece Hall last year caught 76 balls.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
I mean, that is a lot of footballs being thrown his way.
That's more than Christian McCaffrey, so that's pretty telling.
That's more than Christian McCaffrey, and second most to Garrett Wilson on the New York Jets.
Yep.
To me, the one thing that worries me in this game for the Niners defense is, can the Niners defend Breece Hall on the screen game? It just seems like the last couple of years there's been way, way too much room on these screen passes. And you get the feeling that every single screen pass is a roll of the dice. Like, they're gonna maybe they'll corral the guy this time. But if you run another one, maybe he's gonna go for 15. If they throw another one, he might go to the house, take it the distance. The 49ers are so inconsistent with how they are defending the screen pass the last couple of years that. And you know that they're not going to give Bosa Floyd. They look at the Niners and see Bosa and Floyd and Hargrave and say, no, we are not giving this defensive line a free run at our meal ticket, Aaron Rodgers. Yep. So I expect heavy dose of run game and a lot of short passes and maybe a lot of screen passes. And if the Niners can't defend the screen to Hall, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, and something that teams have done to kind of negate the Niners pass rush over the last couple of years, let's call it 2 years, because the Niners like to run that wide 9, teams will let the pass rush get upfield toward the quarterback.
Yep.
And then they'll just have that running back kind of swing out and they'll throw that swing pass out there. So you have the pass rushers coming upfield and the offensive line by design will kind of give them that leeway to get close to the quarterback, but then there's that safety valve leaking out of the backfield with that running back. You throw that swing pass, and then on the outside, you have the wide receivers running downfield, and then really you have to count on, if you're San Francisco, the linebacking core led by Fred Warner to kind of make that play. But from the middle area of the field to get all the way to the sideline, by that time, there's a lot of real estate for that running back on that screen and on that swing out pass. So that's been by design by teams, and San Francisco has to be aware of that because Breece Hall is going to try to leak out and he'll fake the pass protection at times, and then he'll run out on that screen pass. And Aaron Rodgers, as we know, he can drop that arm down to multiple different angles and just get it out to Breece Hall. And by that time, there's so much space in front of him because of how the play has developed downfield, because the corners and the safeties are doing their job, and then the linebackers are having to sprint over to make that play.
And just watching Rodgers the last few years, he's not that mobile, but if you get out of your rush lanes and give him like a secondary launch point, he'll extend the play, run to that secondary launch point, and just break your whole defense down and hold the football and make big plays down the field.